Hello, everyone. Today we'll be talking about recruitment and selection in terms of talent sourcing. Yes, talent sourcing, every step, the stage one, stage two, stage three, and even the stage four of onboarding would be briefly touched upon in today's presentation. So, the agenda is very simple. We first outline the hiring process. What exactly is hiring? What are the do's and don'ts? Develop interview questions thereby so that we lead to a successful hire. Identify what questions which we can ask which are legal, which we cannot ask which are illegal or unethical, if I may say so. And definitely evaluate the applicant. Provide tools to hire the best candidate as and when required. So yes, the agenda is to hire the process, to go through the selection, recruitment, and onboarding process then and there. All the four stages we'll be discussing in today's presentation, primarily for recruitment and selection for a successful talent hire. Stage one is recruitment. Now, what is stage one? We will be trying to understand the in recruitment process, which is the best way to acquire a candidate. Partnering with a HR talent acquisition specialist, henceforth will be known as TAS, talent acquisition specialist, and determine the recruitment sources thereby. Understand the recruitment process, the process thereby. Now, what are we looking into it? There are basically six steps to it. First, the very first thing is we generate that there is a vacancy. Now, we can generate vacancies manually or through SAP, which is the software that we do to run the ERP, the enterprise resource planning process thereby. So every organization nowadays has their own software, own online methodology wherein it helps them to communicate and probably sensitize each and every department, including the HR department, about the requirement of any talent thereby. So yes, we need to create that position either manually or physically or in an or virtual world in an online fashion. If it is in the software based, definitely we should maintain it in the SAP. Second is to get those recruitment or the talent acquisition position that we have generated needs to be approved from the pertinent pertinent authority. Third, receive the position. The HR has to acknowledge what needs to be done. And this is where we come to know. So we first and foremost we have to generate a position. Second, we need to approve that position. Third, we need to intimate the HR about the requirement. Step number four is where the TAS, the talent acquisition specialist, works in conundrum with the hiring manager to develop posting and discuss what strategy should be adopted for recruitment of the talent for a particular position. Remember, when I say a particular position, it can be a senior position in the organization. It can be a very sensitive position in an organization. It can be a very regular position in an organization. It can be a mundane hiring altogether. So we need to have different strategies for different positions thereby. The position then thereby has to be notified in various HR career website stating that there is a vacancy, and this is step number five. The last and the most pertinent state would be the sixth step, wherein the hiring managers will receive the notification. Yes, please go for headhunting or the recruitment process altogether. Again, there are six steps. First, we need to create the position. Second, we need to get it approved. Third, it has to be understood, acknowledged by the HR department. Fourth, the strategy to acquire that talent needs to be worked out. Fifth, we need to post it and notify it to the general public, perhaps through a career website. Sixth is where the actual hiring starts with. The hiring manager receives the notification and they get going. The hiring process. Now, what are there? There are again the six steps that comes around it in this process, wherein first the notification has been done. Everybody is aware that there is a position that is vacant. The talent acquisition specialists have worked upon these strategies. The hiring managers are actually working upon it. So now the applicant, the talent actually will be applying for the relevant position through the right mechanism and the right processes. So, step number one is where the applicant starts applying. Step number two is where the talent acquisition specialist reviews their application, understands their resume before processing them. Third is there where they are being called for interview or the selection process starts. Fourth is after you find a candidate suitable, you start going for the reference check. Step number five is where the HR extends the offer and does a background check. When we extend the offer, in the sense, yes, we are okay if in applying you in your position, probably. Are you applying or willing to join us within this span of time? And that is what the extension of the offer letter has been promoted. Last check is the applicant is hired and onboarding process. Exactly, this is what we'll be covering in today's presentation. Thereby, so recruitment sources are different organizational websites, even organizational it, itself's website altogether. The organization might have their own main page, landing page on the internet. They can post their vacancies out there on their own website. Alternatively, they can actually go to different professional marketplace website, for example monsterjob.com, and so on and so forth. We then They can go for higher education recruitment consortium, depending upon it, or inside higher education. We have the social media, the professional social media format in LinkedIn by request. Most jobs are actually pulled out either from Simply Hired, Glassdoor, Indeed, and so on and so forth. So these are basically nothing but aggregated website or something like that. We can actually go for publication in the print media also for the position. Payment for this site has to be made by the department, and then there can be career temps or temporary workers who can actually be filling up the position. So yes, there are so many recruitment sources thereby. The position description. Now, how do we go around it maximizing this position description? Whenever we are posting for a job, we need to mention everything what the job entails about. So use conventional job titles so that it becomes very attractive for the general public, for every candidate, for the layman. They understand what is the job that is all about it. Keep abbreviations in mind. If possible, a brief job responsibilities using the action verbs needs to be mentioned around it. Include time, travel requirements if the job entails some kind of travel on a regular basis. Differentiate the requirement. Let's say what are the essential skills, what are the desirable skills, what are the preferred skills, what are the required skills. If you can mention them, nothing can go wrong. And consider the length of the job description at the same time. It should not be so detailed that the prospective candidate can get afraid of. You should not try to bug them off because the responsibility is too long and it might not be commensurated with the pay. So let us try to balance something the same every time. The job description needs to be mentioned, the job title needs to be mentioned, the pay pack needs to be mentioned, the requirement of the job in terms of time, travel, engagement has to be mentioned out there. This was all about stage one. Now let us come to stage two. Stage two is nothing but interviewing. Now here we'll talk about the job competencies, what we are looking into it. Yes, in terms of job competencies, it is knowledge, skills, attitude, KSA, or the way you want to go around it. Reviewing candidate material in terms of the job candidate's experiences, in terms of the candidate qualification. Preparing question, what are the legible question and what are the question that needs to be avoided. Interviewing the candidate thereby. So establish job competencies. Outcome, what do you want exactly? What do you want this person to accomplish altogether? Skills, what actual skills and knowledge must a person possess to achieve the desired outcome? Now, these are what we are looking into it. Experiences, are there prior experiences a necessity? Do you want the job incumbent to start working from the day one of his or her joining? Perhaps what experience is helpful, but probably not absolutely necessary. If you have certain good network, probably that is going to augment your performances. But probably if you don't have the network, it doesn't matter at all. So that is what we need to go around it. Organization alignment. What does a specific environment of this position require? What personal characteristics are helpful in managing that particular position or being successful in that position? So yes, we need to establish the competencies in terms of outcomes, skills, experience, and organizational alignment. Thereby want to look for a resume sign of achievements? Yes, definitely yes. What they have achieved in till that moment in their career, specific result, transferable skills, appropriate education. Do you have the requisite education? Do you have the requisite work background, continuity and duration of employment? If you see there are many zigzag in the employment, if you see the person has not been very continuous, or has not been continuing in a job for a longer period of time, that is an impediment. But it gives you a brief idea of what kind of person you are dealing with. Gaps in time, perhaps unclear, incomplete, or conflicting information. This is one of those anomalies that one needs to point out, because this will tell how authentic the person is. All about it. It will tell the integrity about the person. So large numbers of relocations, job changes that do not indicate advancement. Now this is one matter that one needs to ponder upon. If it is not indicating advancement, why there was a job change, perhaps. So we need to understand, is it because the fault of the candidate, or there was redundancy in the organization, accuracy in spelling, grammar, format. So these are things that one need to look for the resume to understand the background, work ethos, cultures, and probably the outlook of the candidate, perhaps. So we need to look at the science of the achievement, the specific result, the skills, the education, the background, and so on and so forth. So let us go into the lawful or the unlawful quiz. What are the questions that we may ask, or what were the questions that we should avoid? In terms of gender, should we go for it? Sexual orientation, identification, perhaps no. We should not be looking into it. Genetic information, race, color, national origin, religion, age, disability, convictions. I'm talking about police conviction, status in the military, marital or parental status thereby. Now, these are things that need to be taken into account every now and then, whenever possible. These are the questions that needs to be sensitively handled. If possible, avoiding them makes sense altogether. I repeat: gender, sexual orientation, genetic information, race, color, national origin, religion, age, disability, conviction, status in military, marital or parental status thereby. Now, these are things that needs to be handled in the most sensitive fashion if possible. Now, what are the various type of interview? I believe in STAR, STAR. I'll be probably coming in talking about STAR within few moments from now. So there are basically six types of interviews. One is behavioral interview, situational interview, rapport building interviews, open-ended interviews, closed-ended interviews, and contrary interviews. Now, what are we looking into it? Now, every time there are the candidate has been coming with you, that talent acquisition specialist will try to convince, let's say, contrary evidences. Whatever the candidate says, we like to barge or make contrary requirements, what has worked and what hasn't worked, perhaps. This helps the talent acquisition specialist to understand the capability of the person in terms of handling a situation, perhaps, in terms of knowledge gathering, and so on. Similarly, for rapport building, as far as organizational alignment is concerned, helps you in together. So let us proceed. First and the foremost thing is the behavioral interview. Now, what is behavioral interview? It tells exactly how the person is going to gel with the organization values altogether is the single best predictor of future behavior in past behavior. As for specific example, where the candidate has worked all together, which shows the candidate has done in past and probably he or she would do in future, because uh, character of a person is very difficult to remove altogether. If it is there in the character of a person, he or she is going to extend his or her behavior in due courses of time, and it will be very difficult for him to shed his probably her skin and become a new leaf new person overnight. So behavioral interview is the best predictor of your future behaviors perhaps. So behavioral interviews is all about past performances, all about what has happened in the history, a person's motivation, thought process, decision making process, assessment of situation, problem solving is what we will be looking into it. Application of prior experiences to the future job related situation. Now this is where how future ready, how amicable the person is all to changes, that needs to be understood, and this is what behavioral interview is all about. It is all about the past performance, it is all about the person's motivation, it is all about the thought process, the decision making process, and how relevant or willing is he to change over a period of time. So let me give you three examples or two examples perhaps. Let's say, what are your strengths? We can always ask. Or the answer might be, I think I'm a hard worker. If that is your strength, how do we go around it? Tell me about a project that requires to put you in extra effort to meet a deadline. Now, this third question of behavioral is wherein it's come from the answers of the candidate. Now, the candidate has to prove that he or she is a hard worker, because it was a casual question in terms of strength. If the question is, what is your strength? I'm a hard worker. Then why don't you elaborate one incident where you've put in much more of a work to achieve a result? Now, that will fix you, that will give you a brief idea about how good that person is all about it. Let's say, tell me a time about when probably demonstrate a particular criteria, when you demonstrated a team spirit, when you pulled out a situation at the last moment, when you handled a customer or a client who was absolutely creating tantrums for the organization. So these are your behavioral questions that comes around it. So I'll just give you brief ideas about it, how to start the questions. Tell me about a time when you exhibited such and such. Give me an example of a time when you had met result within a predetermined deadline. Describe a situation in which probably the budget was overrun. Describe a time when you had a particularly difficult situation with a customer and how did it handle it. Tell me a work situation where you had to manage your colleagues, co-worker, teammates, and what do you do about that? Have you ever had to? There are so many questions that come across it. That is what behavioral questions will be looking into it. It will give you a brief and a clear idea about the person's handling of the situation. Did I say about STAR? Yes, STAR was all about the behavioral question. STAR stands for situational and task. ST is situational and task. AR is for A for action, R for result. So, first and foremost, give a situation, give a task, understand how the person reacts to that situation or the task. In the action part, A for action, what did the person do? Did he run away? Did he fight it out? Did he face the situation? Result, how effective the person was. Was he an utter failure or was she a super successful? Now, this will give you understand a proper understanding about how good that person is all about it. Situational interviewing question. This is when the candidate may not have the actual experiences you are looking for. Probably yes, and it is not possible for a candidate to have all kind of experiences and then still coming to you to ask for a job. So you want to ask, want to see how the candidate would assess a situation or probably how a candidate would resolve the situation. That is more important. So this is all about situational interviewing question. If you were to develop a program for a department, how will you like to do it? You have multiple tasks to accomplish. How would you prioritize the tasks? So effective questioning techniques, most importantly, would be your rapport building techniques. Do you think it will ever stop raining? Probably a casual questions about the general environment, and you will understand whether the answer was in monologue or a complete paragraph. How willingly he or she is opening up to you, or probably how good the rapport has been built upon it. Next thing would be your open-ended questions. What do you think about your current job? Now, this is where he can badmouth the job, he can goodmouth the job, he can give a balanced view, he can give you an understanding, he or she can always talk about their personal experiences. Perhaps closed-ended question is how many years have you worked, and you cannot touch this question. It can be 21 years, it can be 28 years, it can be 2 years. It is a closed-ended question where you cannot tell about until like the answers about the rapport building question or open-ended question. You cannot speak on and on as to your requirement, perhaps. So, effective question techniques are the contrary evidences question. You mentioned that you work hard to build a customer service team. Can you tell me when it didn't work? You worked hard, but it didn't work. You worked doubly hard. You put in much more of labor, much more of time, much more of effort, but still it backfired. These are your contrary evidence questions, and you will need to understand how the candidate is reacting to it. Silence. It is okay. Take some time before you think about the answer. This is where you need to go around it. Interview agenda is to greet candidate, establish rapport, set the agenda for the day, agenda for that moment, for that interview, announce note taking, prepare questions, probe to clarify, understand. Always, now these are things that need to go around it. You are doing it from your own. You are greeting the candidate, establishing a rapport, having a conducive environment. Then probably ask the candidate an opportunity to ask questions. Give the liberty to the candidate to ask questions. Describe the organization. Ask for references that verify job performances. Describe interview process and highlight next steps. Escort candidate out, private location, free from interruption thereby. Take notes. Inform the candidate that you will take notes always. Write down the positives and negatives. Use keywords, phrases to remember, code keys. Fact with interview. Evaluate behaviors. Make sure your conclusions with supporting example. Ensure whatever you are writing it down, there are evidence to it. If possible, if you are taking notes, well and good. If possible, you can always record it. Understand those keywords, the phrases that the candidate is stressing upon it. If there are any behavioral things that is being marked or highlighted, also mention that. Well, this will give you a brief idea when you are reviewing the candidate performances after the interview has finished. And I'm not talking about the candidates interview. Perhaps the whole recruitment process, selection process has been completed by then for all the candidates. So you can always go to to your notes to check which candidates are better and how do you rank them. Did I say we'll talk about the do's and don'ts of interviews? The do's are ask all the candidate more or less the same question. Do use an interview guide. Do find out type of work environment, management style the candidate prefers. Engage in multiple members of current staff for interview. Do look at it. So there is no biasness towards any particular candidate. Questions can you ask? Would I ask all the candidate all the questions? Probably no. Is it relevant to the job that they are performing? Probably yes. Will I ask all the candidate a particular question? Probably yes. Does it have an effect in being discriminatory? Try to avoid or something like that. At the end of the interview, review the notes. What have you seen? What have you noted down? Provide the overview of the position and the role in the organization that you are looking for. Do not, I repeat, do not provide feedback that can be interpreted or perhaps implied as a premises for a promise for employment. Always be neutral in your language. Verify the candidate is interested in the position. Elicit questions, provide answer, explain interview process, next step. Thank candidates for coming. Escort the candidate for the next interviewing process altogether, for the next interviewer to come in. And this means there's a culmination of the interview process altogether. We have done recruitment, we have done interviewing. Now we are talking about the third stage of selection, where we are going to evaluate objectively, check those references, make contingent job offers, and conducting background check. Remember, in this presentation, we will only cover those four stages. Stage one was recruitment, stage two was interviewing, stage three was selection, and the last stage will come as the onboarding process. Evaluate candidate, understand the selection criteria in advance in terms of various candidate. Remember, you are marrying the candidate to the position. So find out the criteria for the position. Use complete assessment while interview is fresh in mind. Assess candidate responses in every areas of their work. Compare the skill proficiency level as in good, on an expert level or an advanced level. Base conclusion on facts, base conclusion on example, base conclusion on your own observation. If there are contradictory observation, please discuss it among all the interview members. Identify strength, limitation in each area. Note areas of weaknesses or weak data for discussion. Participate in the interview team discussion thereby. Stay objectively in evaluating a candidate. Always be objective. Never get biased. Never get in favor or against. So have a sense of central tendency. Evaluators consistency. The first impression is the best impression. I believe so. It counts. Make it. Avoid halo effect, the horn effect. Don't try to give candidate extra marks or extra or less marks perhaps. Consistently, altogether. Leniency. Do not be too lenient. Do not be too severe. Do not be too lenient in giving marks or evaluating, giving on a better side, on the brighter side of the aspect. Do not be very severe as in to give less marks, probably, or probably objectively dehumanizing him or her. Similar to me, stay objective when evaluating candidate. So these are the criteria that you should always take into consideration. These six criteria of central tendency: evaluator consistency, first impression, the halo or on effect, leniency or severity, and similarity to me is one thing that you need to remove. Selection process, prepare the job offers. Now this is where the task will notify the approach, the finalist, whether they have been selected for the job or not. If it is an external candidate, the HR will schedule an HR interview, discuss details with the offer with the talent acquisition specialist, what you are offering in the job. Managers need to complete the position offer detail form. Now, this is where you make an offer to the candidate that they have been shortlisted. The company is thinking of hiring them, onboarding them, make them on the offer, take that interview, HR interview in terms of salaries, in terms of work environment, and then probably ensure that the candidate is fully aware in what kind of job and what kind of capacity they are going to join the organization. Then comes the reference check. Reference check can be done by the talent acquisition specialist or the legal service team. Complete at least two external references. If internal finalist, the finalist direct supervisor must supply with a written references, which should be then forwarded to talent acquisition specialist. Best scenario is have a reference check form, a written summary, which is sent by the HR. Then come the contingent offer. The next step is all about the contingent job offers. Only human resources can extend the offer of employment. The contingent offer is pending the background check. If everything comes good from the background check, candidate is also agreeing to the contingent offer, then we can actually make them the appointment or the service agreement with them. HR will submit the background check, Conduct background check. Background check must be conducted for every employees. It might take anything from 10 to 14 days. Certain position may require um, police verification, legal verification, the Cori or the Sori check, as the case might be. Plan accordingly. Finalist can not start in the position until and unless the background check has been finalized, has been approved by the HR thereby. Now, what happens if a candidate declines the position? Then probably the talent acquisition specialist has to offer to the second best candidate, reassess the candidate pool, or probably invite new people for interviews. Or probably you can have to understand what the job is all about. You have to either redesign the job or reassess the job description, and probably you might need to look at the compensation that has been offered. So yes, you can offer the position to the next best candidate, start with the or restart with the hiring processes in terms of interviews, in terms of selection, in terms of in terms of recruitment, or probably go to the job description and redesign one, reassess one, probably work upon your compensation level. What if the candidate accepts the position? Now, this is a the win-win situation. Notify the person interview candidate that they were not selected. If some people are selected, but rest have to be notified that the selection process is complete and they will not be considered henceforth for the position. Send your talent acquisition specialist list of candidates personally notified to prevent duplication of communication. EEO, equal employment opportunity information for the position, be it of gender, be it of race, for all those who are interviewed. Contact new hire to welcome and confirm the date, start date. I'm saying so. Prepare onboarding process in terms of communication, in terms of logistic, in terms of scheduling. Communication of informing the staff, logistic of workspace, office supplies, scheduling is training, the first day agreement. Now we come to the stage for the last stages of onboarding. Prepare before the employee starts. What are the orientation that we are looking into it? The departmental orientation, if the case might be. Why is onboarding important? Providing a welcome, collegial, and a professional environment, as well as the tool that is required to ensure that the new hires is successful at the organization. Provide information about the organization cultures. Cover compliances items such as policies required for the new hire altogether. Ensure connection between various colleagues, teammates, team workers, the department, and the organization. Give clarity to the position and the performances thereby. And that is very important for the onboarding process altogether. There are basic stages of onboarding. I'm just touching them out. Prior to employee arrival, inform staff of the employee arrival. Set up clean new employee office space wherever the employee is going to work around it. Work with the information technology or the IT department to obtain and set up the computer terminal. Day one, the new hire orientation, tour of the office building, office supplies, facilities, check in with new hire to review the work schedule. Week one, introduce the new employee to the staff, establish access to appropriate computing resources, electronic files, copier, fax machine, review the position extensively. With this, we come to an end of this presentation of the talent recruitment and selection. Thank you for watching this video till the very end.